Alrighty.
No, a lot of people are not sure.
Oh, no, I really appreciate that, Elijah. That's totally fine. I debated coming because I always feel just like a little crummy after I travel, but it was great.
Is it fun?
It was
How's the weather? Cold?
like this, basically.
Yeah.
Only chillier because there's wind whipping through downtown, but no, I was a little worried because I typically stay with like my best friend from grad school and she didn't come. But like I forgot how many people I just know at this conference and like I haven't seen in 3 years in like 3D. So it was nice to just see people and chat with people and people responded. It was in New York City, it was in like right in Times Square, so
So cool.
yeah, so people actually responded really well to my presentation, which was great. That doesn't always happen, so.
Can we run Mars?
Yes, please do.
Not sure I did my speech correctly, but.
That's okay. Yeah, we're gonna take a couple minutes at the start of the day to just like answer questions, get everybody calmed down.
I need to turn my own. Yeah, so
Yeah, if you have your speeches, I'll take those.
I have it on Google.
So yeah, go ahead and find your person. Oh, is it finally in?
Which one?
Oh, here you go.
Keep forgetting about it.
Did you want this later now or? Yeah, that's fine. If you're probably not gonna present till like next Monday or Wednesday, so. Yeah, you don't only need to turn in your speech the day you're speaking in theory, so.
Do we need to print it first doing the speech today? Cause I don't have mine on here.
No, I think you should be able to turn it in on Blackboard. I think the reason I originally said printed is because most people had it printed to read off of, so let's just give me that copy.
Is it okay if I read off of my?
Yeah, that's totally fine. We can be technologically advanced, might be some of these people. All right, so come find your character name if you haven't already. And we're gonna take a 5-10 minutes at the start to just answer questions before we dive in, because I got some panicked emails over the weekend. And because I would have like 5 minutes in my room in between things, I wasn't able to answer them all, so I don't want anyone to be panicking. Alrighty. Okay, so we're gonna start the simulation today, and every simulation day is really about just how far we get. I mean, honestly, there are times where we might only do 2 speeches in one day because everybody wants to debate it afterwards, and that's cool. That's part of the fun here. So this is. Oh, thank you, Jade. I forgot to do that. So Live transcript is on. And actually, if Zoom people, if you don't mind changing your label to your character name, that'd be awesome. That's how we did it when I had to do this entirely remotely. All right, so what we're gonna do is each day we will go to the agenda, which let me screen share it with our Zoom folks. Our convention program. And my screen share was loading really slowly. And then each person will go in this order. And again, after each person talks, everybody's job in character is to ask them questions, right? So I believe Miller is a cognitivist, right? So behaviorists might have some, or psychoanalysts might have some pointed questions, right, about that. Although, if I also believe their speech isn't too much about that. So, you know, we can let that go as long as we want. You know, that's part of the fun of this game, is that it's what happens at conventions. So like, there was actually the first presentation I went to, this convention I was at over the weekend, one of the speakers wasn't able to be there. And so instead of having like 15 minutes for questions, we had a half hour and we filled it with questions and discussions, right? And that's great. So what questions do people have? What anxieties do I need to help you allay before we start? Since I was out of town and not able to respond that well. Yeah.
I just don't know if my speech covers a lot of the speech that I had to read about, because it was sort of hard to understand.
That's okay, yeah.
So mine is more like, it's broad and it goes into a little bit of detail, but not as much as I like. or-
That's totally fine. Yeah, you guys aren't expected to make speeches on the level of these people who are experts in these, right? So what you're doing is gleaning what makes sense to you and using that to make your point. And your speeches and your questions and how you vote on things should all be in service of those goals for the game you have at the end of your characters. It's a really good question. Ally, did you have something too?
Yeah, so this is over 5 classes. right?
Exactly.
So like, if we don't get to everyone today. then
We
it's-
won't get to everyone today. Definitely not. Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's Like,
It'll just keep going. And I mentioned this to some people who came early. There are folks who haven't turned in their abstracts on the Google sheet. And maybe you've turned them in on Blackboard and not there. I put this together from the Google sheet. So try to do that, or the Google form, sorry, you know.
Is that right?
Yeah, so there's a link and it's also on Blackboard. Because that'll allow me to copy paste them over. I've sort of just made myself the program committee because y'all have enough going on, so.
It doesn't let me find anything on it. This is request access.
Oh. Do you have a Mac? Yeah, this happened to one of my alums where like when they changed the privacy settings. They did this, so just shoot me an email and say, hey, my abstract's on Blackboard. And I will grab it for you. Yeah. Yeah. And you guys can mix it up if you want to go in a different order, that's fine.
yeah.
But yes, that's how we'll do it. I think Michaela, you had your hand up.
For the speech, that was the.
No, not necessarily. I mean, you could say a little bit if you want. Typically when people get up to speak at conferences, they just say, you know, like I'm so and I do research on blah, or like I work at blah. So no, you don't need to give like a giant bio of your person. Yeah, so it'll be in, at the end of your character sheet in the like specific assignments. And so if you get elected president, you'll do the presidential address, but there might be another speech they want you to do as well. I don't remember yours off the top of my head. So, yeah, it would be, and again, all of our speeches are 5 minutes or under. And so it can be really short, you know, it could just be, here is what I'm proposing, I think it's good because of X, Y, Z. I mean, your speeches in theory could be like a minute. This is everything I had as of 8:45 this morning. So, did you also put it on the Google form?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll resend it because I could. I was frequently doing it both before and after I. So. Other questions? Do you guys want 5 minutes to just sort of like touch base with your collaborators and whatnot, especially now that everybody has labels? Alrighty. So let's see. I'll actually just set a timer up here. We'll go ahead and take 5 minutes and y'all can touch base with each other, do whatever, and then we'll get started.
Is it okay if I turn in my speech a little fast?
Yeah, totally fine.
Because I'm
Totally
still
fine.
getting
Totally fine. Y'all know I'm flexible.
Oh, it's just turning out Blackboard? Oh, man, I didn't even do that.
That's okay. Good, you have time. Alrighty, so here's your countdown. If anyone needs to touch base with the folks who are on Blackboard, you can come up, or Zoom rather, you can come up and use my computer. I am gonna get myself set up because this is really complicated for me because I'm grading y'all and game mastering, so. Yeah.
I don't think I'm. I just.
I mean, I understand you all are nervous, yeah, because a lot of people don't like public speaking. But it's us, even if we do other options, No one's gonna judge you, right? Or each of all that. Like each of the rain, yeah, so we'll probably not get to that, so next week. And what we do is, you will submit super brief abstract about it. And then you get up and you'll say, I want to print out their abstract. I want to be on the phone. And then go back. Yeah, I just answered my one. Okay. Yeah. That's okay. I take probably from that. I didn't know how to do that, but. Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally did it. Yeah. The day where I was in, like, all the people were on. Yeah, you shouldn't have. You can only like, I don't even know. And obviously, it's over. I think it's the prettiest, but I've never actually heard his name spoken out loud. So whenever you go with it, it's accurate as what I expected. If you see me marking things down, all I'm doing is like marking whether you gave a speech that day and things like that. I'm not actually like being like, look, fine, you go to me. Oh, okay, I was like, oh, no. Yeah. No, I will see, we might only get through the first couple. I would love to. We'll just see how far we get, honestly, like sometimes we rush through things and sometimes we have. I So we can always make yours the first thing on that. Because we're gonna do another game day next Monday. And then have a day where we get stuff together Wednesday, the whole working. Is that right? So we got, right? 3 more games. I don't even know it all. I like got home an hour after I was supposed to last night, so out of it. Okay. Whew. All right, looks like people are good to go, so I'll do this so we don't hear the obnoxious noise. I'll leave this up and I am gonna turn it over to our president for the first year, George Miller. Da, 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 da. And George, when you're done, your job is also just to introduce the next speakers too. So, which you can do just by reading what's on the page. And I'll leave this up so everyone knows where we're at with things. And I told George, I'm gonna try really hard to call y'all by your name, in your character names. I'm probably gonna F it up. And I told George, we can be time traveling psychologically advanced people from the 70s, so if you need to bring up your laptop or your phone to make a speech, you do that.
In fact, the future come out of the.
80s, but pretty close.
Can I put this?
Yeah, that works.
My little campaign ad.
I gotta be extra.
I love it.
Thanks. Can I find a tiara? Anyways. Okay. Hello, fellow citizens. My name is George Miller. I was born in 1920 in Charleston, West Virginia, and I made many accomplishments in my lifetime. A little bit about me in my life is that I'm currently professor of psychology at Hartford and the founder of cognitive psychology. I attended George Washington University and then transferred to the University of Alabama, where I accomplished my BA and was appointed to become a professor of psychology, which then sent me to grad school at Harvard. I was given the position of vice president of the APA and to take the role of president for the APA meetings. The famous paper I wrote is called The Magic Number 7 Minus or Plus 2, which is a must read for all psychologists today. I'm not talk about my past. Let's talk about the discussion of the selection. I'll be promoting my vision of cognitive psychology and steering away from the idea of behavioralism. But it's not what's the difference. It's not what is different though. Instead, it's about how we can bring psychological communities together and agree. In politics, most debates are persuasive about why we should vote for one another. But my debate is to inform all citizens that instead of looking away at other psychologists' opinions, we're going to work towards undergoing the mind and not the petty disciplinary policies. Although I was raised a behavioralist, I'm still open-minded to hearing other psychologists' opinions. In difficult cases where disagreement is most likely, something that precedes the welfare of one group may disadvantage the other group. The problem is to decide whose welfare we should promote. First, we are going to start with funding, which will be used towards focusing on the mind, such as Freud. Before Freud, we only knew about the structure of the brain, and now we know that we have conscious and subconscious thought patterns. This has become a social challenge we need to contribute, but we can't because the contributions have not been comprehensive enough for the community. So let us continue to move forward, fighting for advanced psychology as a whole to promote human welfare. As your potential new president, I will ensure great power and responsibility. I will ensure to work hard to compromise to come up with solutions to any disadvantages that arise in the future to ensure that everybody works together and is included.
All right, questions for Dr. Miller? You differed better, Dr. Miller, than we usually have on this campus. Did I say that out loud?
Good job.
Now I will be calling Ivan Bieber up to the stage.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Irving Bieber. And I must say, what I walked into today was chaos. It hurt me to see that people believed I was somehow conspiring against homosexuals when I never said homosexuals were sick. What I said was that they had displaced sexual adjustment. I suppose this is particularly why we're here today. I am here to speak on the critical nature of homosexuality remaining in the DSM-3. I believe a task force is necessary to ensure this information stays where it should and to make sure people receive the help that they need. My companion, Charles Socrates, will discuss this aspect further in the next speech. It has always been the foundation of my therapy to provide care for my patients. It is vital for their health to have opportunities to recover from their illness and receive the treatment they deserve. And for those who have not read my book, Homosexuality as a Psychoanalytic Study of Male Homosexuals, it was a response to the Kinsey Report, which I'm sure you are all familiar with at this point. My book discussed the study that Charles Socrates and I did by discussing personal conflicts for 106 male homosexuals and 100 male heterosexuals who sought psychoanalysis. We were able to conclude that homosexuality is a neurotic adaptation to unresolved conflict, usually originating in the Oedipal stage of development. Freud was brilliant in his discovery of the unconscious mind. This was a concept that forever shift the manner in which psychologists and countless other fields conduct their research. His work cannot be discounted. As a Freudian psychoanalyst, we must draw from Sigmund Freud's stages of development. When we look at the Oedipal stage, it is key to note that this is a natural part of development, and so is fear of the opposite sex. It isn't healthy. What isn't healthy is when these fears do not resolve when one matures and results in sexual attraction of the same sex. In no way do I believe that homosexuality is somehow a criminal act worthy of shame or reprimanding. This is just nonsense. The change to become heterosexual is possible for all homosexuals who are truly motivated to make changes. As this is based on habitual actions and thoughts. People need to have resources to come into a psychologist's office with a diagnosable disorder. This is what allows them to be taken seriously and find assistance that they need. Therefore, as you have now heard of the research performed to prove homosexuality as a DSM-3 qualifier further, I'm sure you will agree that it must remain in the DSM-3, and we must continue to work at providing necessary assistance for those seeking it.
All right. A lot of you should have pointed questions here.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, okay, so you said that, the homosexuality was based off of the Oedipal complex.
Yeah.
Is that specifically to males, or does that apply to females, and if so, does that mean that it applies to the Electra complex?
So at this point, I have only studied males. My friend Freud has done one study on lesbians. And, but at this time, it only applies to males as far as my research goes.
So homosexuality only applies to the male gender?
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's all I've studied on so far.
Other questions, other pointed arguments?
You studied the psychopathy of and
That is a good question. Yes. In terms of diagnosing it as neurosis, that does categorize homosexuality as a form of psychopathology. So my studies do revolve around that field of thought.
Would you say that homosexuality in your terms is diagnosable by a set of symptoms? And also, have your studies been cross-culturally examined?
At this point, it has not been cross-culturally examined, no. And tell me your first question.
Oh, now I forgot.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, would you say that homosexuality has a specific set of symptoms or traits that you can define off of one of your?
probably is. Did I read a case study or not? I'm so sorry. Thank you. So, yes, technically, not necessarily cured, but I do believe that it is, homosexuality is habitual. So it's based off of kind of what you do. So we have done studies with, those male patients in comparison of how the habits of the heterosexual and the homosexual male. And the homosexual males who really wanted to change, were able to, basically change their behavior, change their mindset, and start practicing different habits of the heterosexual patients, and that caused them to move forward in a way where they're more comfortable with being attracted to the opposite gender.
Say that, some of the symptoms of homosexuality lie with and in terms where they have a compulsive habit to be attracted to members of the same sex, and that's the issue.
I think compulsions is a big part of it, because compulsions is kind of, goes hand in hand with that obsession. It's kind of that train of thought that continues in an unhealthy pattern and needs to be processed in a healthy way through psychoanalysis. Yes.
So would it be reasonable to assume that rather than homosexuality being mental illness, homosexuals are suffering from other mental illnesses that may be completely unrelated to their homosexuality and in fact society.
I think it would be more that they're comorbid. It's just a part of most neuroses, is that it's not just one thing. Typically, it's multiple things that go hand in hand, and that's how it falls under a diagnosable disorder for the DSM.
I have a question about your studies. When you chose your volunteers or participants, did you just choose homosexual males or did you choose heterosexual males as well? Was there like a comparison or something?
Yes, my study was conducted with both, there's 106 homosexual males and 100 heterosexual males. It was roughly the same number. And we did do comparisons between the two to verify that there was a correlation. I'm scared of the question.
Sorry. So good. Any other questions for Dr. Bieber?
Sorry.
Yeah. Assume
I knew it was
that
gonna be
no one
hard.
Necessarily endorsing.
No.
And in fact, our first community here, like I said, in their role because they were really the it's so.
It was 106 homosexuals and 100 heterosexuals.
They're trouble. Thank
No.
you.
Good morning. My name is Charles Socrates, and I'm a physician in psychoanalysis and take after many of Freud's ideas. I see myself as an advocate for homosexuals, which is why homosexuality needs to stay in DSM-3 so that psychiatrists like me and Beaver can still be allowed to treat homosexual individuals who seek treatment for their illness. I do not see homosexuality as a sin because it's not. It's a psychopathological and rooted from childhood trauma and experiences. If it is removed, no one in psychiatry would be allowed to treat these people seeking treatment. The removal of homosexuality from the DSM-3 also affects the scientific research that is being done on homosexuality because the DSM-3 determines who gets funding to be studied scientifically. Aversion therapy has been proven to be an effective method for stopping homosexuality, and 1/3 of my patients have been cured after treatment. Homosexuality is rooted from deeper psychological problems, and if removed, these psychological problems will go untreated in many people, which is just not fair to those people seeking treatment. It is our job and duty to help as many people as we can as doctors. We took an oath, and if we remove homosexuality, we'll be dishonoring that oath. I want to emphasize how homosexuality is rooted from childhood and through the unresolved issues in the odial stage of development, which is why therapy can help to resolve these unresolved problems and cure them from their illness of homosexuality. Homosexuality is not a bad thing that people should be forsaken for, but it is an illness that needs to be cured, and we will be doing homosexuals an injustice if we do not do our part to help cure them. Which is why I am proposing a task force with Beaver to focus on the psychoanalytical treatment of homosexuality.
Right, small part of the question.
No questions? Yes, Riley.
Is there a reason you would have to avoid so much with your research?
Yes, there's actually such a good reason. You see, when I was 13, I read about Freud and I just became infatuated with him. I read a biography on Freud and I just decided at the age of 13 that I was going to be a physician and a psychoanalyst and write and co-write many books because of Freud. He's my inspiration. Yes.
So as a psychoanalyst, you would treat homosexuality and you said that you would cure it. How would it be your way of addressing it with your patients? With their treatment?
So I would use aversion therapy. And I also found in my 1962 study of homosexuality that many tendencies to look outside of a child's gender will make them homosexual. If they have a fear of the opposite sex genitals, then their subconscious will fear that and it'll motivate them to be attracted to their same sex. So I would use my psychoanalysis and I would talk to them and I would uproot that trauma and I would solve it with them. Yes,
And how many people are being cured?
1/3 of my patients.
And there's been no relapse or anything?
No.
Yes, here have your studies, focus on, when you're studying homosexuals, are you studying in treatment homosexuals, or are you also treating are you also studying non-homosexuals?
Most of my studies have been with my patients.
Do you think that might be a little biased? Since they're
I think that is the pool that I've been dealt to use my psychoanalysis on. So that is what my research has been on. Yes,
For these people that have come to you for help during their own sexuality, or have they come to you for other things that that would be good?
they're seeking treatment for homosexuality.
Master clarification, can you explain to us how you do your aversion therapy? You don't have to get very detailed, just give general principle of what it is, if people don't know.
So you're basically treating people with a condition and you're using one stimulus to basically have them paired with another unpleasant stimulus. So if they are presenting homosexual behaviors, I will present them with the unpleasant stimulus, which is aversion therapy.
Clarification for anyone who's not as familiar with aversion therapy, this might have been like an electric shock or imagining your current office or something like that.
Yes.
So, Would it be safe to say that aversion therapy provides trauma as well?
I think it just changes the imbalances in the nervous system in the brain rather than create trauma. Yes.
Have these homosexual traditions been treated for anything other than homosexuality?
That would go against HIPAA.
I know we can fix it again, but we can roll with that. Any other questions down there? All right. I'm gonna go up to facilitate our next one, just because our next person's on Zoom, so. Make sure he is okay. Dr. Anonymous, are you okay speaking from Zoom? Dr. Anonymous, are you with us? Well, he said he's sick, so. Okay, so we will wait on Dr. Anonymous, and the next person up will be Barbara Giddings.
Right, can I sit here?
Yeah, you can totally sit. And so what might happen is we may finish today after Giddings and then have Hooker and Dr. Anonymous speak next Monday. Okay, can I get out real quick? Sorry. Unless you want me to like cover you next.
Okay, everyone, hi, I'm Barbara Gidding. I'm going to be talking today about the question, should homosexuality be on the APA legislature? I will answer based on my findings and take any questions or comments you might have. First, I'll give a little background about myself. I'm an American activist for the LGBT equality. I'm a major part of the Daughter Abilities, or also known as the DOB, and had a publication called The Ladder, where I focus on putting out literature that would expand the mind of homosexuality across the board. I also work with Frank Kempsney on the first picket lines that brought a lot of attention to the ban of employment of homosexuality in the United States government. I was also a huge part of the American Library Association, where my love for learning about lesbianism came to be. Being a lesbian, I wanted to know more about myself at a young age. I found that in libraries, literature spoke poorly about homosexuals, and there were no real answers to them. I made it my life's mission to get better literature in libraries regarding homosexuality and get it taken off of DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. I want to break the barriers by removing negative stigma around homosexuality in and outside of the library. So my first argument is talking about Alfred Kinsley. He published two groundbreaking reports. The one that I will be talking about was a study sexual behavior in human males in 1948 and sexual behaviors in human females in 1953. He created a scale called the Kinsey scale, or also known as the heterosexual homosexual rating scale. The scale shown, I'll pass these out. I have the scale, if anyone wants to look at these. If I made enough copies. Sorry, I don't have them pretty.
Oh, I need it left, so you're good.
Okay, so he created the scale called the Kinsey scale, or also known as I said, the heterosexual homosexual rating scale. The scale showed that human sexuality was not either all heterosexual or all homosexual, and that sexual orientation is a continuum. The scale, as you see, is from 0, exclusively heterosexual, and it goes to 6, exclusively homosexual, with all variations in between. His study also revealed that 10% of males were exclusively homosexual, for at least 3 years between the age of 16 and 55, which is a 5 or 6 on the scale that you guys are looking at. He also found that women between ages 20 and 35 years of age had a scale of 5. Also, unmarried females ages 20 to 35 were given a 6 on the scale. The rating of number 5 on the scale being primarily homosexual and number 6 meaning exclusively homosexual. Resulting in this study, there was finally scientific evidence that a significant portion of the population was naturally homosexual. It was obvious after this study that being homosexual was not a pathology, and psychologists and psychiatrists were basing their opinions on discrimination and emotion. These other psychologists and psychiatrists were not looking at the facts. This study was a powerful weapon and fight against discrimination. So now I'm going to move on to my second argument, which is talking about the DSM position on homosexuality, which is what my question is basically all about. Homosexuality was put on the DSM as a mental disorder, which was published by the APA, which is the American Psychiatric Association. The APA published that homosexuality was a sexual deviation in the DSM-I in 1952. It was categorized as a psychopathic personality disturbance under personality disorders. 4 years later, this being published, the first Kinsley report was published by Alfred Kinsley, which is the one you guys are looking at, which I talked about above. In the DSM-2 in 1968, it expanded the sexual deviation diagnostic category, which had different sexual deviations that were under 10 individual codes. Homosexuality, fetish, like a fetish, pedophilia, transvestism, exhibition, voyeurism, sadism, masochism, and other sexual deviations and unspecified sexual deviation. In closing, many gay rights activists fought this, and the 7th printing of the DSM-2 renamed homosexuality as sexual orientation disturbance. It was also noted that homosexuality was not a psychiatric disorder. This was a huge victory for activists like myself, because it showed that there was change when it came to homosexuality being a mental disorder, and that people were not unwell because of their sexual orientation. Fast forward to the DSM-5, which was published in 2013, it has no diagnostic category for homosexuality orientation, although some sources say that it might be renamed gender dysmorphia. And I have a few questions, if anyone, after carrying a series of events, do you believe sexual orientation is a disease? Why or why not? Is your character, no?
I have no.
How do we keep evolving as a society when it comes to homosexuality or any kind of sexuality? Are any of you guys against the DSM, the changes that have occurred over the DSM? No. Do you believe that we have more to do when it comes to mental illness and sexual orientation as far as our future?
And sexual orientation?
Yeah.
I would like to say that I think that homosexuality is not a disease, but that there are some mental faculties that need to be treated for societal pressures.
How about questions for our speaker?
For this scale, was this a self-report?
No, this was someone that I worked with, Mr. Kinsley. This was something that he came up with back in the 1960s.
So did people rate themselves or did somebody else?
Yeah, so it was a study that was actually done. I think it was about
don't have the exact thing, but it was, I think it was about 50, yeah, so I said it was, it took about 15 people from 20 to 35, and then they rated themselves, and then 50 males. And they rated themselves, this was all self, like, yeah, they did it on their own.
Just want to note that self-reports are at least for long. I also had a question for the first part of your speech.
Okay.
You said that most psychoanalysts, state that they say, basically face discrimination when diagnosing clients with homosexuality. How is that true when clients are actually?
What do you mean? What do you,
So you said, psychoanalysis state that. They diagnose their clients with homosexuality disorder from a place of, you do that from discriminating against them or from emotional place.
Yeah.
But actually, our clients are coming to us for help. We're not thinking they're seeking help.
that is true, but just in general, like. Maybe I'm a little biased, but I think that. I have the knowledge of being a lesbian and kind of knowing that. You know, when I'm coming to someone, I'm not, like, when I guess back in my time, I. Went to a psychiatrist and I asked for their help and they wanted to cure. And I guess I took that as, I don't need to be cured, I need to be understood. And I think that is kind of like. There's a disconnect when coming to psychiatrists, not everybody wants to be cured, maybe some people just want to be heard and. Be able to live their life as a lesbian or any kind of gender preference.
What would you say to the people who are like who work on who wanted to be cured?
I would say that is their choice. I don't agree with it, but that is their choice, and if that's gonna make them have a happier and healthier life, then more power to them.
Would you say that this scale would argue that sexuality is not linear?
I mean, I think it's a continuum, like, I think sexuality is, like, I totally agree with it, I think that. Especially in this day and age, someone can be, you know, either like, it isn't just gay or not. I believe that it is a continuum and that we're still trying to find that continuum and whatever it may be.
So, I'm sorry, this is a quick question. For this scale, were you using just homosexual males nationally, or was this?
I'm pretty sure it was, yeah,
International.
it was homosexuals and heterosexuals.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Excellent job. All right. That's not the people today, because we only have 4 minutes left, so we can get through another speech anyway. So as you can see, it's all gonna be sort of up in the air who's going what day, but I will maintain this as the general order. Based on having done one day, do people feel a little better?
Yes.
Okay. Any remaining questions, things that are clear?
So can we get the schedule for the next 4 days so we know, like?
Everything, we're just gonna go in order on here.
Okay.
And so again, like, we might get through all this next Monday, or we might only get through, you know, like 3 speeches. It'll just depend on how many questions there are, but it'll go in this order.
No, like, based off that, like, I don't think I know yet.
Right, right. If you didn't turn in a second abstract, you won't go with it, so. Yeah,
Speech is supposed to be, mine's like 5 minutes.
yep, 5 minutes or less, perfect.
Okay, mine went a little bit over.
Yeah. That's fine.
Sit down.
That's righty. So yeah, if anyone has any individual questions, feel free to come up to me. If not, have a wonderful Thanksgiving and make sure, yeah, that I get these back.
Thank you.
Okay. So go to yeah. Put down.
I was reading through like. Okay.
Opinion about this?
No, that's why,
Yeah.
I was like. There's like a few things that people saying, I was like, maybe I could like ask them like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's up to you if there's something that you feel like you might want to do or not. but-